Is Russia and Wagner running out of steam in Bakhmut and across the rest of the front lines? But are they reaching out to China to resupply and fill in the gaps in their defense industrial base? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's March 17th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. Okay. First off, let's take a look at the control map. As you guys can see, the biggest note is where there isn't changes, which is Bakhmut. You can see in the last 24 hours, the city itself, we haven't really seen any changes in major control. But what we have seen is a push forward into low value territory on the northern flank of Bakhmut itself. This is probably part of this Russian effort to create this big northern prong to make Bakhmut at least appear to be under greater pressure. But as long as Ukrainian forces control Chasiv Yar and keep at least one evacuation route open from the city, it doesn't, this sort of taking of big open fields isn't going to make a huge difference. The only other notable change to control is actually in the north here. We have a small chunk of territory, again, really low value set of wood lines here that appear to have been taken by Russia. It's not clear that they were part of Ukrainian lines. It may reflect a man, I'm just misclicking like it's going out of style today. It may just reflect a shift in sort of or a repositioning of frontline troops, because you can see Russian forces moving up and Ukrainian forces also closing this gap here. So it probably just forces advancing in turn. What I did want to talk about, though, if you guys maybe have seen the video, I was recently kicked off Patreon for my coverage of the Ukraine conflict. They believe what I'm doing is glorifying violence, which if you've been on the Patreon, you know that's not really what we do. But in order to keep my brand integrity, I've moved all my exclusive content on to combatvetnews.com. This is my own site. You can come here and view all of my most recent YouTube videos. And we have a members only section with the exact same tiers as the Patreon, but everything is less expensive because Patreon doesn't have to take a cut. And I'm going to be dropping every single day this week a new exclusive, uncensored combat video breakdown. So, thank you guys that support me, that came over. And this is only the beginning. I have bigger plans to expand Combat Vet News into something that looks like a really good, high quality news site for not just the Ukrainian conflict, but conflicts and national security issues around the world. Okay, let's talk about the other major news. Well, actually, we'll look at the combat map. You guys can see that most of you guys could have predicted exactly what this is going to be. Kreminna Lyman, Bilohorivka, Bakhmut, and a smattering, actually. This is fairly light for the Donetsk city area of operations. It's just, we're only seeing about 3 or 4 attacks. And you can see in the last 24 hours, we've seen just 70 separate instances of attack, which is, usually a more typical number from like last month would be over 100. So it's possible that Russia is running out of steam and has to be more disciplined with how it's using its forces. And the UK Ministry of Defense has said as much, that Ukrainian forces are continuing to defend the western half of the town. But more broadly across the front lines, Russia is actually conducting its lowest rates of local offensive action since at least January. They think that it is because Russian forces have temporarily depleted their formation's combat power, that even local offensives are not really sustainable. But Russian leaders are going to try to regenerate munitions, military supplies, and training for troops and other essential military logistic functions. Now, this is pretty interesting because we also had a recent news story that the Chinese government, right? Western news agencies confirmed yesterday that the Chinese companies have sold rifles, drone parts, and other equipment that could be used for military purposes to unidentified Russian entities. Customs aggregator, data aggregator Import Genius showed that Chinese companies sent equipment including 1,000 assault rifles, 12 shipment of drone parts, and 12 tons of body armor to unspecified Russian actors between June and December. Right, Ukrainian forces in March also said they shot down a retrofitted, weaponized Mugen 5 drone produced by a Chinese commercial manufacturer. Now, they point out these are small weapon sales. Russia, again, mobilized 300,000 troops. So the 1,000 rifles is 1/3 of 1% of what we would what they would need to equip their forces. Here we go. They are called the CQA Rifle, and I'll show you guys the CQ Rifle. Here it is, a Norinco CQ556. So it is the Chinese variant, in this case of the M16, but the CQA should actually be here we go. Small Arms Defense Journal has the Chinese CQA. This is a Chinese-made clone, and you can see it really is a clone of the M4 on the Chinese CQA. It's functionally an M4. There are tiny differences, obviously differences in the markings, but what you're looking at is a really, really spot-on clone. And so when we say hunting rifles, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about rifles that are, while they probably don't have semi-automatic, they don't have probably 3-round burst settings. They only have semi-automatic, would be my guess. But as you've seen in a lot of the footage here, full auto firing is not essential to combat in this particular conflict. And given Russia's struggles, I'm sure it is more than happy to have gotten even the limited number of CQA rifles. And the tons and tons of body armor is also significant, though body armor is heavy, so it doesn't take much to constitute a ton of body armor. But the Russia's ability to generate manpower, if it were to be combined with China's ability to manufacture goods and services, or manufacture goods, you could end up with, while a kit vastly inferior to NATO standards, you could end up with a large number of conscripts with a fairly robust kit. Interestingly enough, though, China itself does not equip its military with body armor as part of its standard infantry soldier package, which itself is pretty interesting given it's one of the wealthiest countries with one of the largest military defense budgets. But again, China itself simply feels that the juice is not worth the squeeze for body armor. They prefer to focus on other modernization efforts. Anyway, guys, that is all I had for you for today. Thanks, as always, to everybody that's come over and signed up on combatvetnews.com. I'm going to see you guys in the video later today. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.